Hey YouTube! Thank you for stopping by my channel, The Magical Solution. My name is Leilani. If you are new to my channel, welcome. If you are a loyal subscriber, thank you so much for sticking with me. So I just came back from an amazing walk on the trails of Dover, New York. It's so beautiful over there. It's an indigenous area where Native Americans had once stayed, and there's waterfalls, there's streams, there's hiking trails, there's rock caves. I mean, there was so much beautiful stuff there. It was amazing. But this video is not about that. This video was actually a requested video from a lot of my viewers, and I'm so sorry for the dogs in the background. It sounds like there was a lot of, I guess, dogs kind of walking past each other at once, and you know how that goes. But anyway, so a bunch of viewers requested that I do a video on book recommendations. They feel that the information that is out there can be kind of confusing sometimes, and they just want a concise place that they can go to sort of get some ideas of where to look, you know, specifically. And listen, I have an entire room filled with books. So much, it's insane. So I tried my best for this video to narrow, I'm looking at it and it's so intimidating already, but I tried my best to narrow it down to some of the books that I tend to go to often and how I started. Okay, so let's begin. The very first thing I want to recommend for anyone who is starting out in this world of spirituality, and especially in magic, is to get yourself a journal. Get yourself a journal, book of shadows, grimoire, whatever you want to call it, okay? Just get yourself a journal. This journal can be used for all kinds of things. Me specifically, I have a journal for every kind of subject. So I have a dream journal, I have a journal for all of my formulary, I have a journal for my philosophical and spiritual beliefs and morals and codes and all that good stuff. I have my own journal for my sigils and my symbols. I have a journal for pretty much everything. So, but you can get yourself a nice big fat journal and just divide it into, you know, chapters. You can get yourself even a binder, you know, from like your local dollar store. Get yourself a binder and just use colored paper to divide it for the different things that you want to put in there. Okay, so get yourself a journal. That's the first thing I recommend. The second thing I did when I was going through this path was I pretty much read everything as a sponge, and I read all kinds of religious texts. And you can get yourself a Bible to look through, a Quran, a Jewish Torah. But my favorites, my absolute favorites to work with for spiritual texts, believe it or not, is more Eastern. My favorite is the Upanishads. Absolutely amazing. You can see all of my highlighting and stuff in it. And I did pink back in those days because I was like 11 when I read this. Pink. The teachings of Buddha and the story of Siddhartha. And I did not bring out my book of Tao, or Tao, which is correctly pronounced. But those three are my favorite go-to spiritual texts. Everything else, I mean, I got them, don't get me wrong, and I read them, but those are like my go-to. So that's my second suggestion. So a journal will be my first. My second would be reading all spiritual texts from all over the world. It's really important because what that does is it builds your spiritual language so that you're more versed and more prepared for conversation on spirituality. Because being a witch and being someone of an alternative faith, people are going to challenge you, you know, they're going to want to talk about it, they're going to want to ask you questions, they're going to want to do it in such a way that they're going to bring it back to their religion so that they can try and make sense of it all. And it's always best to know their religion better than they do. That way you can bring it back to their religion, sure, why not? But you do it in a way that says, you know, you do you, I do me, and here's where the common ground is, and let's leave it at that. Agree to disagree, right? My third suggestion would then be to look at philosophical texts. And what I mean by philosophical texts is philosophies about religion and people's take on different kinds of religions. So some of my favorite that I have here are, sorry, I have to like reach for them because they're all the way on the other end. Immanuel Kant is an amazing philosopher, speaks a lot about religion, but specifically more from like a reason standpoint. David Hume speaks a lot about religion, but does it more from a humanitarian standpoint. William James, what can I even say about this man? He's a poet. I'm sorry. Whenever I read his stuff, he's just a poet. I highly suggest him as well. And then of course, you know, your more well-known philosophers that some people won't even call them philosophers. You know, some of them are anthropologists, some of them are psychotherapists, but who have written books on religion. So people like Joseph Campbell, right? That's a popular one. Everyone's heard of this guy, right? I have his entire collection. The man is not one-dimensional. Trust me when I tell you this. Same thing with Carl Jung. I have his entire collection. This dude doesn't just talk about the 5 things that everyone knows him for. He goes into all kinds of stuff. However, with Jung, I also suggest kind of getting a side notes booklet if you can, because his stuff is very dense. He speaks as if you already have your PhD in this stuff, and he's not gonna try and dumb himself down for you. So like, if this information seems complex, I do suggest getting like Cliff Notes or something, because it's very dense. So that's my opinion. So first is your journal, second is reading spiritual texts, and then third is reading philosophical texts, right? Ooh, another one I forgot. Ooh, I forgot this one. Yeah. Now, Leo Tolstoy, he's not necessarily a philosopher. He's more of a fiction writer, believe it or not. He has a lot of stories and he does a lot of storytelling, but it's so philosophical in their nature, and it's, oh my gosh, it's beautiful. I highly suggest reading some of his stuff. This one in particular, I highly suggest. The Kingdom of God is Within You. Beautiful story. So yes. Then the next thing you're going to want to incorporate into your bookshelf is practical and scientific stuff. This is super, super important, you guys. Like, I'm so tired of having conversations with these, like, new agey individuals who are on some next level, you know, place where they don't incorporate any kind of math or science or just anything that's real. Just completely disregarding it. And there are places to look that incorporate both. Like, you don't have to just go and pick up a quantum physics book, or you don't have to pick up a psychology book and try and go through that and jam it into your brain. Like, you don't have to do that, although I do recommend you doing that. But it's more like, you know, find those cross breeds, you know, find authors who are naturally skeptic, find authors who are people who want to approach it from that level. So some of those people that I can recommend to you is this book right here, Brain Magic by Phil Farber. He approaches magic from a neuroscience standpoint and how your brain works. And this dude, you know, starts off like, look, I was a skeptic. This is just how I stumbled upon it, and this was my way of understanding and digesting this material. It was a great book. Great book. Another author that I really like is Rena Shesso, and she writes Math and Mystics. And this is a great book too, because it breaks down all kinds of math, everything from your Fibonacci sequence to the golden, what is that called? The golden seal, I believe it's called. And all the different, and how math and numbers in and of themselves are magical, and how we utilize them in our magic. Great stuff. Good stuff. You know, but then you also want to do things that are very practical. you know, not just, you know, science and psychology and all that stuff, but you also want practical things. So things like learning about rocks and minerals and crystals, right? Everyone around here, the new fad now is crystal grids, right? So everyone's all into the crystal grids, but no one really understands, like, what are these stones? How do you get them? Where do they come from? Yeah, they have energies, and yeah, they have frequencies, sure, and that is what we utilize and what is important to us. But these stones also have a history. They also have their own story to tell that we should not ignore. You know what I'm saying? And you can get books just like this when it comes to trees, when it comes to plant life, local like shrubbery and plant life, birds, any kind of animals that are in your local area that are natural to your area. You can get books on all kinds of stuff that will help you. So when you're going on walks or when you're going on a trail and you see a plant that you're like, what is that? Now you have a book to reference that, which could be useful to you in your magic. Because at the end of the day, the universe, when it speaks to you, it puts things in your path. It gives you messages constantly. It is always trying to communicate with you. But if you're not on the up and up, if you're not understanding what's going on around you, then you're going to miss those signs. And it's really important, you know? You also want books on, once you've gotten the knowledge of your rocks and your trees and your plants and your birds and your this and your that, then you're going to want books on how to then incorporate them practically into your work. So not just magically, but practically. So things like, you know, getting a medicine book on how to make tinctures and salves and lotions and soaps and remedies and soups and this and that. Like, that is super important. This is how witches started. This is how our people started. We healed each other. That is where it all began, you know, and you know this because everyone has a grandma, and everyone's grandma at one point or another knows some kind of little trick up her sleeve on how to make you feel better when you're not feeling right? So, and those little folk things, those are traditions that we should hold on to, and it all started with stuff like this. So get yourself these kinds of books, right? So now I'm trying to clear the way because I have all these books in my face right now, and I'm trying to like clear the way so I can get you going. Okay. So now that you've gotten all that, right? So you've gotten books, you've gotten your journal, you've gotten books on spirituality, different spiritualities all over the world, philosophies, and practical and scientific and mathematical books, right? Now we can start delving into magical texts that help to give you structure, right? That is like where it all is at. Oh no, I left the other book. Did I? I did. Oh, Booger Schnitzel. You know what? Let me pause it because I have to get this book. It's really important, okay? Hey, so I got it back. So what was I saying? Now that we've gotten to where we needed to go, it's about structure, right? For me, I'm a Virgo. I need to have structure in everything that I do. Don't get me wrong, I'm flexible. I can move and go in and out of situations without a problem. But in terms of my spirituality and what I want for myself and how I want to build myself up, I want to do it structurally, right? And one of the best series of books that I worked with when I was first starting out, and I loved so much, and it wasn't even when I first started out, it actually was like midway through, and it was information that was kind of old to me, but at the same time it was presented in such a structural and great way, and I recommend this for any new person in this field for sure. It is the Christopher Penczak Temple of Witchcraft series. So let me get that for you. It starts off with The Inner Temple of Witchcraft. That's the first book. the outer temple of witchcraft. Now the inner and outer, the inner temple of witchcraft starts you off very basic, the same way I would start you off with this YouTube series, which is, with meditation and protection and this idea of really honing in on the self, right? Whereas the outer temple of witchcraft really hones in on the outside and the elements and how you're influencing the world, right? The third book is the shamanic temple of witchcraft. This one goes a lot deeper, right? So this is approaching it more from a shamanic standpoint, the indigenous standpoint, this idea of defeating the shadow and really overcoming the self in order to elevate and ascend, right? The fourth book is the Temple of High Witchcraft. Now this gets into much more like ceremonial magic, a lot more of the Kabbalistic kind of stuff and all of that. I'm not too much into this as much as I am the shadow work and the more like indigenous stuff. But this is very, very interesting for those of you who are interested in this. Very in-depth. But as you can see, that book is a lot more tougher because I never really worked it. I never went through it. Then you get into the Living Temple of Witchcraft, which is a 2-book series. This one is the first of the 2 books, and this one talks about the descent of the goddess, right? And then the second one of the 2, the Living Temple of Witchcraft, which talks about the god. All right. So again, this is structural, and it's structural in a much more like Wiccan-esque kind of way. But it's so great. I mean, look, you know what? Let me actually open up some of the pages for you, because this book has, exercises that you can do. It has homework assignments for you to work on. I mean, there's rituals for you to practice, and there's even accompanying meditation CDs that come with them. Well, they don't come with them, you have to buy them separately, but still, like, they're just amazing. They're structured so well for a new person to delve into this world, right? But for me, that was great. That was, like I said, I found that kind of midway through my journey. But in the beginning of my journey, what I absolutely fell in love with is this idea of alchemy and also this idea of Hermeticism. And the books that absolutely transformed my life that I still refer to today are it's a book of books of 3. It's a 3-set book. Sorry, let me say that again. It's a book set of 3. Boom. And they're all amazing, but the very first book of the 3 is what I come back to every single time, and the author is Franz Barden, and the name of the book is Initiation into Hermetics. And as you can see, that's book 1, right? This book is phenomenal. However, here's my only critique about this book. For those of you who are not into structure, and for those of you who have a hard time with being told what to do, his books would not be for you. His books are very strict. They're very regimen-like. They're very almost like militaristic in how a mystic and how a spiritual person should live their lives. All right, so not many people will agree with them. Not many people vibe with that. Do you? It works wonders for me. I absolutely love it, and I have built the majority of my spiritual system on his books. So yes. So now that you've gotten the structure out of the way, so you've read religious texts, you've gotten yourself with spiritual vocabularies and ideas, right? You've read philosophical texts, you've gotten yourself worldly and cultured and understood. You've read practical and scientific and mathematical texts so that now you understand how our magic applies to the real world. Then you read magical structural texts, right? That get you into a systematic way of doing your work. Now we get into the fun stuff, and you finally get a chance to work with books that help you with formulary and with recipes and ideas and all that good stuff, right? So I love to start off with introducing you to books with regards to specific spirits and deities. I don't know, some of you might have pantheons that you work with, and some of you may not. Some of you are totally doing this on your own without the assistance of any kind of spirits. But for those of you who are, these are some pretty good books. These are The Power of the Orishas, but this is from a Santeria standpoint, not necessarily any of the other African traditional standpoints. Saints, right? I have tons of books on like Celtic deities and Norse gods and Egyptian gods and all kinds of fun stuff. So instead of getting 25 books on all these different gods, your best bet is to get it all in one place. And I recommend this amazing goddess whom I love so much. She is another one of my gurus that I will follow her till the end of the earth, is Judika Isles, Mystic Saints and Sages. This book is amazing. It's kind of like, it's an encyclopedia. It's your go-to. It has all of the spirits that you can think of in here, okay? And it has like their feast days, it has like the offerings that they enjoy, it has all of their correspondences and associations, so you can work with them. All right, so this is a great reference book for anyone to have. And speaking of Miss Judika Isles, of course, every witch, every practitioner has this on her bookshelf. If you do not have this on your bookshelf, you need to get with it, okay? I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, you need to get it. The Book of 5,000 Spells. For reals, look at this. Do you see this? Look at this. This is like the length of my hand, okay? This book has everything you need. She did the research for you. God bless her soul. She did all the legwork for you. You're lucky. So just get this book and you have everything you need. However, if you don't have that book, here are some other alternative cheapies that you can stumble upon. Let's see what I got here. Carlos Mantega, where is it? Montenegro, sorry. Carlos Montenegro has these two great books. These are bath recipes to make spiritual baths. And this is just a breakdown of Santeria in general in terms of the herbs that are used, the incenses, the oils, the candles that are used, how to make them. So these are great reference books. Another author, another actually set of prayers that you should get are Allan Kardec. I just want to make sure I have all his stuff in one spot. Here we go. So here are the two that I have from Allan Kardec, although he has a bunch more. My only issue is that they're not written in English, and I don't speak Spanish. So, I mean, I can read Spanish, but it takes me a while to go through it. So this is what I'm limited to as of right now. All right, so we have the Selected Prayers Volume 1 and Volume 2. Okay. Now, another thing practitioners should have, and this is just in my opinion, you don't need to have this, because I know a lot of magical practitioners really have this thing against the Bible. Don't ask me why, but like anything Christian or Catholic, they just are like, oh my God, I don't want to, deal with that. But they're really missing out on a whole buttload of power, because there's a lot of power to be found in those religious texts. So if the Bible is what scares you, get yourself a book of Psalms and how to work those Psalms. So yeah, I definitely highly suggest that. So mind you, this is your formulary now. So you're building up your library with regards to how to work with prayers, how to work with herbs and incenses magically, right? Formularies, spell books. Now, Anna Riva is another great resource to pull up. She has books on incense and powders. She has books on herbs, how to work with those bad boys. She even has books on magical seals and the secrets of these seals. How to work with those. See all that fun stuff? Look at that. Look at that. Fun stuff, right? So get those. And you're building up your library. That's what I'm saying. You're getting it. And just take what you need. Take what you need out of it. Because a lot of these books is really dense. A lot of it you're not really going to ever go into that direction. So take what you need from it, okay? Another formulary book that is really, really good is by Lady Rhea, The Enchanted Formulary. Gets into a lot of fun stuff here. But believe it or not, like I said, Judika Isles, she did all this research already. Like, all these books that I just listed here is pretty much in that book, all in one spot. So keep that in mind. And also, you want to get yourself some how-to books. So Some Paper in My Shoe is a great book in terms of how to write your petitions, how to communicate with your spirits, how to ask for what you want, right? And you know me, in my other video that I posted right before this one, the announcements video, I talked about my Facebook group, which is a group about essential oils and how to use essential oils in your magic, right? And I have tons and tons and tons of books on essential oils, everything from how it's used in Ayurvedic medicine all the way to, you know, outlandish kind of theories on frequency and this and that, right? One of my favorite books to kind of reference is this book called Secret Potions and Elixirs and Concoctions, and her name is Marie Anarchy Mixak, I think. All right, there you go. And it's Botanical and Aromatic Recipes for Mind, Body, and Soul. Great book, love it. That is pretty much all the books that I brought out here. Hopefully I covered everything. Hopefully, right? So, quick recap. Get yourself a journal. Read all the religious texts that you can get your hands on from every religion all over the world, right? Get yourself philosophical texts. So, read books on very respectable philosophers, anthropologists, historians, people who are out there getting their hands in this information and reading their opinions on it, what they feel their interpretations are, right? That's also really important. These are highly educated individuals who have access to these texts that we don't have access to and are able to then let us know through their eyes what they see. Really important, right? Even watching documentaries and stuff, helpful, right? Then you want to get yourself on practical texts, mathematics, science texts, books on herbs, books on trees, books on natural wildlife, books on rocks and gemstones, everything of our natural world. Get your hands on it, okay? Then you want to try, if you want, this is just my approach, then you want to try and do the structural stuff like I said and what worked for me, right? So getting books that kind of have like this series that you can follow and kind of go through so that you can see where your strengths and weaknesses are because it's structured for you, you know what I mean? And then last but not least, build your library of formularies, books on recipes, books on how to make candles, books on, how to make soaps, how to do this, how to do that. And once you've gotten all of that, now you can actually start doing your magic. Now you've built yourself up a really good library to call upon when you need it. And you guys, what I just showed you was a whole bunch, and it didn't even crack the surface of what I have in my library. It's insane. But that's it for me. Now, I kind of avoided going into any specific pantheon or any specific kind of magical traditions because I don't want to offend anybody. However, if you have a very specific question, if you're like, hey, do you have any books that you'd recommend for the Norse pantheon, or do you have any books to recommend on, you know, ceremonial magic, or do you have any books to recommend, then just leave me a comment down below. I will gladly make you a list of what I have and what I've researched about it and what I enjoyed to read. But I try to avoid very specific stuff, and I only gave you the stuff that I pretty much use on a daily basis. Alright, so hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Please share this video if you feel people could use it, and like, subscribe, share, comment, you know what to do, and I'll see you around.